I've built bridges that thousands of people drive across every single day without thinking twice. I've designed water treatment systems that keep entire communities safe. For 38 years, I showed up, I worked hard, I did everything right. But nothing in my entire engineering career prepared me for the moment I watched my own nephew slip something into my drink at my retirement party. And what he didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I had already seen him do it. So I made a decision that night that changed everything. Stay with me, because this story, it doesn't end the way you think it does.
My name is Dale Merritt. I'm 62 years old. I grew up in a small town called Harwick Falls in rural Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows your name and your father's name and your grandfather's name before you ever say a word. My dad was a steelworker. My mom cleaned houses on the east side of town 3 days a week. We weren't rich, but we weren't broken either. We were working people. And working people in Harwick Falls had a code. You are what you get, you don't take what isn't yours, and you never, ever betray your own blood. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Ohio State. Civil engineering. It nearly killed me financially. I worked nights at a loading dock, weekends at a hardware store, but I graduated in 1986, and I got a job with the same municipal infrastructure firm I eventually retired from, Crestline Engineering and Construction out of Columbus. 38 years. I worked my way from junior site engineer all the way up to senior project director. I managed a team of 47 people at my peak. I oversaw projects in 6 different states. I'm not saying any of this to brag. I'm saying it so you understand. This was my life. Engineering wasn't just a job. It was my identity. My wife, Patricia, we call her Patty. She's been beside me through every single year of it. We met at a church fundraiser in 1989. She was volunteering. I was eating her potato salad and trying to figure out how to talk to her. We got married in 91. Had 2 kids. Our son, Marcus, who's now 29 and works in IT up in Cleveland, and our daughter, Leah, who's 26 and teaches 3rd grade in Cincinnati. Good family. Honest family. I was proud of us. Now, my sister, Carol. Carol is 7 years younger than me. She had a harder road. She got pregnant young, married a guy named Ronnie Stills who turned out to be about as reliable as a screen door on a submarine. Ronnie left when their son was 6 years old. That son was Tyler. Tyler Stills, my nephew. Because Carol struggled, and because I genuinely love my sister, I stepped up for Tyler. Bought him his first bike. Helped pay for his community college. When he was 24 and couldn't find steady work, I got him a position at Crestline, not in engineering, but in project administration. Document management, filing, scheduling. Entry level, but it was a foot in the door. I thought I was doing something good. I thought I was being the kind of uncle every kid deserves. I was wrong about Tyler. I just didn't know it yet. The first sign something was off, and the very first sign came about 2 years before my retirement. I was having lunch with my buddy Frank DeLuca, who runs our HR department. We were eating sandwiches in his office, just casual, and Frank mentioned that there had been some complaints from younger staff members about a hostile work environment in the admin department. Anything serious? I asked. Frank got quiet for a second. Then he said, "Dale, I probably shouldn't say this, but it keeps coming back to Tyler." I remember putting my sandwich down. "Tyler, my Tyler? I don't want to make it a thing," Frank said. "But yeah, there's been a pattern. A few people have said he name drops you constantly. Like, uses your name to get around normal procedures. Skips sign-offs because he tells people you approve things. That sort of thing." I thanked Frank and told him to handle it by the book. No special treatment. That afternoon, I called Tyler in my office and had a quiet conversation. He denied everything, smiled that easy smile of his, and told me the other employees were jealous. I let it go. Looking back, that was my first mistake. Over the next 18 months, little things kept nagging at me. Tyler started showing up at family dinners talking about money. Not his money, but ours. Questions about my pension. Questions about the house. "Uncle Dale, you and Aunt Patty ever think about downsizing?" Or, and this one I remember perfectly, sitting at my kitchen table at Thanksgiving, asking Patty with that smooth voice of his, "So what does the retirement package from Crestline actually look like?" Like ballpark. Patty laughed it off. I didn't say anything, but I filed it away. Then about 8 months before my retirement date, something happened that I couldn't file away. I came home early one afternoon, a Tuesday. Patty's car wasn't in the driveway, so I figured she was out running errands. I walked through the back door into the kitchen and heard voices in the living room. One of them was Tyler's. The other, and this stopped me cold, was my neighbor and longtime friend, a retired attorney named Howard Baskin. Howard had helped me draw up my will years ago. I stood in that kitchen and listened. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard Tyler say something about power of attorney and what happens to the property if Dale can't manage his affairs. Howard's voice was uncomfortable, short answers, clipped. Then I heard Tyler say, clear as a bell, "I'm just thinking about being prepared. You know how it is with older men and health stuff. Things can change fast." I walked into that living room. I have never seen two people go quiet so fast in my life. Tyler stood up. "Uncle Dale." "Hey, Howard and I were catching up." "Howard," I said, "is everything okay?" Howard looked at me with this expression I'll never forget, part guilt, part relief. Tyler stopped by asking some general questions. I told him anything like that would need to come directly from you. Tyler laughed and said something about just being proactive. He left about 10 minutes later, kissing me on the cheek on the way out the door like nothing had happened. That night, I sat in my garage for 2 hours and thought hard about what I actually knew about my nephew. And the more I thought, the colder I felt. He'd been working at Crestline for 8 years at this point. Entry level the whole time, because every time a promotion came up, something happened. A file went missing. A report had errors. Small things, but enough things that his supervisors kept him right where he was. And I had always defended him, always made excuses. I started to wonder, had Tyler been managing his own mediocrity on purpose? Staying invisible, staying close to me? I didn't have proof of anything, but I trusted my gut. And my gut, which had caught engineering flaws that saved lives, was now telling me, watch your nephew. So I did. My retirement party was planned for the second Saturday of March. Crestline rented out the private event room at a place called Brennan's Grill and Banquet Hall. Nice place, dark wood, big stone fireplace, the kind of spot you book for milestone moments. About 110 people showed up. Colleagues, family, old friend from the neighborhood. My kids flew in. Patty wore her blue dress that I've always loved. People gave speeches. There was a slideshow of projects I'd worked on over the years. Frank DeLuca roasted me for 10 solid minutes and had the whole room in tears from laughing. It was everything I'd ever wanted a retirement party to be. Tyler was there, of course, dressed sharp, hugging everyone, working the room. He gave a toast early in the evening, stood up with his glass, and talked about how I'd been a second father to him, how I'd changed his life, how he hoped to someday honor everything Dale taught me. People were tearing up. I smiled and raised my glass, but I watched him. Here's the thing about being an engineer for 38 years. You develop a very specific skill. You learn to observe systems. You learn to track variables. You learn that when something should happen in a predictable way and then it doesn't, there's a reason. And you find that reason before you sign off on anything. I've been watching Tyler all night, watching how he kept positioning himself near the bar, watching how his eyes tracked where I was in the room, watching how he laughed a little too loud at the wrong moments. It was around 9 p.m. The dinner plates had been cleared. People were mingling. Music was playing soft in the background. I had stepped away to use the restroom. I told Patty I'd be right back, but I didn't go straight to the restroom. I stopped just around the corner from our table, where I had a sight line to my seat without being visible. I don't know exactly why I did it. Call it instinct. Call all those months of watching. And I stood there, and I watched Tyler Stills walk to my seat, look over both shoulders, and take something from his jacket pocket. A small plastic vial, the kind you'd get at a pharmacy. He uncapped it quickly, tilted it over my glass of iced tea, and emptied it in. Then he put the vial back in his pocket, walked 2 steps away, picked up a conversation with one of my former colleagues like absolutely nothing had happened. I stood around that corner for what felt like 5 minutes, but was probably 30 seconds. My heart was hammering. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something I'd never quite felt before. 38 years of solving problems. 38 years of staying calm under pressure. Of not panicking when a structural calculation didn't add up. Of not flinching when a project fell apart at the seams. I breathed, and then I thought very clearly, I need to handle this the right way. I did not go to Patty. I did not make a scene. I walked calmly to the bar, ordered myself a fresh glass of iced tea, and sat back down in my seat as if I hadn't seen a thing. Tyler came over moments later. "Having a good time, Uncle Dale. Best night of my life," I said. He smiled, glanced at the glass on the table. "You should drink that," he said. "You've barely touched it." I looked right at him. "I will," I said. I'm pacing myself. What Tyler did not know, what I hadn't told anyone yet that evening, was that 3 weeks earlier, after that conversation I'd overheard between him and Howard, I had installed a small personal security camera in my home office and started keeping notes. I had also spoken, very quietly, with a former colleague of mine named Stan Briggs, who'd spent 20 years as a county sheriff before becoming head of site security at Crestline. Stan was at the party that night. I excused myself from the table, found Stan near the back of the room, and told him quietly and precisely what I had just seen. Then I said 6 words. "Don't let him leave this building. I want to tell you something, because I think it's important to be honest here, even when it's uncomfortable." When I was standing in that corner watching Tyler, there was a moment, just a split second, where I thought about my sister Carol, about how hard her life had been, about the little boy who used to fall asleep on my couch watching baseball games, who I'd carry to the guest room so he wouldn't wake up with a stiff neck. Tyler wasn't that little boy anymore. Maybe he hadn't been for a long time, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. I've spent a lot of time in the weeks since that night asking myself how I missed it, or, and this is the harder question, whether I did miss it or whether I just kept choosing not to see it. Because I think somewhere in me, I knew Tyler had a shadow in him. I caught glimpses of it over the years. The entitlement. The way his eyes would go flat when something didn't go his way. The way kindness from him always felt like it had a price tag underneath. I wanted to believe I'd given him enough to fix whatever was broken in him. That's a very human thing to want to believe. And it's also how people like Tyler operate. They find the ones who want to believe in them, and they use that wanting like a tool. That night, sitting at my retirement party table with a poisoned drink 3 feet away from me, surrounded by the people I love most in the world, I felt something break open in my chest. Not grief, exactly. More like the end of something. The final closing of a door. Patty came and sat beside me at one point and squeezed my hand. She could tell something was off. She whispered, "You okay, baby?" I looked at her, my wife of 33 years, the most decent person I have ever known, and I said, "I'm going to be. I promise." She gave me a look that said she trusted me completely. That helped. More than she knows, Stan moved quietly and professionally, the way you'd expect from a man who spent 2 decades in law enforcement. He positioned himself near the exit, had a word with one of the banquet hall staff, and made 2 phone calls. At around 9:45 p.m., 2 Columbus Police Department officers walked into Brennan's Grill, and the party got very interesting very fast. Tyler saw them come in. I watched his face, watched the color drain out of it as they spoke to Stan, and Stan pointed in his direction. He tried to play it cool. Walked over to them with that easy smile. "Can I help you, officers?" What Tyler did not know was that Stan had secured the glass from the table, my original glass with the tampered drink, the moment I'd given him the nod and switched to a fresh one. The glass was bagged. The liquid inside would later test positive for a sedative compound, specifically a heavy dose of a prescription sleep medication, the kind that combined with the alcohol Tyler had watched me drink earlier that evening, would have been, in the words of the toxicologist who reviewed it, potentially fatal in a man of Dale's age and weight, especially given the concentration. Potentially fatal. My nephew had come to my retirement party planning to put me in the ground. And the motive, which came out over the following weeks as investigators dug in, was exactly what I had feared. Tyler had, apparently over a period of years, convinced himself that I had more money than I did, that my estate was worth far more than reality, and that, with some paperwork he had somehow gotten forged or planned to get forged, based on documents found on his laptop. He could position himself as my primary beneficiary and caretaker. He'd done research. He knew about my pension. He had my social security number. He had a folder on his computer labeled, "God help me, Uncle D, transition planning." The police arrested him at the party, in front of everyone, in front of my colleagues who'd known me for 30 years, in front of my kids, in front of my sister Carol, who collapsed into a chair and had to be helped outside by Leah, in front of Patty, who held my hand so hard I thought she might break it, and I was grateful for every second of it. Tyler didn't say anything dramatic when they put the cuffs on him. He didn't yell, didn't cry. He just looked at me across that room, and for one moment his face was completely unreadable. Then they walked him out the door, and the room was absolutely silent. Frank DeLuca, God bless him, was the one who broke it. He walked up to the microphone and said, "Well, Dale Merritt has had more interesting retirements than any of us. Somebody get this man a fresh drink." And somehow, people laughed. And then we kept going. Because what else do you do? Tyler was charged with attempted poisoning and criminal tampering, first-degree felony charges in Ohio. When the forensics team examined his devices, they also found evidence of prior research into similar incidents, which led prosecutors to add charges related to criminal conspiracy and elder financial abuse. He pled not guilty initially, because of course he did. His court-appointed attorney pushed for a plea deal. The DA, a sharp woman named Colleen Vaught, who I've never met but now genuinely admire, wasn't interested in going easy on it. 6 months after my retirement party, Tyler Stills was sentenced to 11 years in a state correctional facility. I did not attend the sentencing, not because I was afraid, but because I had decided very deliberately that I was done giving Tyler Stills my time and presence. Carol called me that afternoon. She was devastated. And look, I love my sister. I will always love my sister. But I also told her the truth, as gently as I could. "Carol, he made his choices. You didn't make them for him. And I'm not going to pretend what he did was small, because it wasn't. He tried to kill me at my retirement party. And if I hadn't trusted my gut, we wouldn't be having this conversation." She cried. I let her. We've talked since then, and we're slowly finding our way back to each other. It's complicated. Family usually is. What I also found out, sometime after the arrest, was that Howard Baskin, my neighbor and friend, had actually been more uncomfortable with Tyler's visit than I'd realized. Howard had quietly kept notes from their conversation and had already been considering whether to come to me. When investigators spoke to him, he cooperated fully and immediately. I've had Howard and his wife over for dinner twice since then. Good people. Decent people. There's something I want to say about the karma part of this, because I know that's what some of you are here for, and I get it. There's a satisfaction in watching someone who did something terrible face consequences. I felt it too. But the real karma, for me, wasn't Tyler going to prison. It was me sitting on my back porch 2 weeks after the party, on a warm March evening, with a cup of coffee and Patty beside me, watching the sun go down over our backyard, and realizing I was alive. Healthy. Retired. 62 years old with a good pension and a beautiful wife and 2 kids I'm proud of and a career that actually meant something. That's the karma that mattered. Tyler tried to take my future. He failed. And every single morning that I wake up and make my coffee and take a walk and call my grandkid. Yes, Marcus has a 2-year-old now. Her name is Ellie, and she is the absolute light of my life. Every single morning that I get to live the life Tyler tried to steal from me, that's me drinking his medicine right back. People ask me sometimes, now that the case is closed and things have settled, whether I feel guilty about what happened to Tyler, whether I wonder if I could have done something differently, whether I should have seen it coming sooner and intervened. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes, late at night, I do think about it. Not with regret about what happened, exactly, more with sadness about what could have been. Tyler was given chances that most people never get. Real ones. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up for him. I put real resources and real love into that kid. And he chose what he chose. I think there's a version of Tyler that, somewhere along the way, made a decision, maybe small, maybe almost unconscious, to stop being the person who earns things and start being the person who takes them. And once you start down that road, it's a long, dark walk to the kind of person who can look his uncle in the eye at a retirement party and slip something into his drink. That didn't happen overnight. That was years of small choices, which is also true in the other direction. Every honest thing I ever did, every long night at the loading dock, every project I finished with integrity, every time I told the truth when a lie would have been easier, that was also a small choice. And all those small choices compounded into something I'm proud to have been. So here's what I'll leave you with. You don't build a life in one dramatic moment. You build it quietly, one decision at a time, in the 1,000 ordinary moments that nobody else sees. And the people who try to shortcut their way to what you have, they don't just fail. They miss the whole point. The point isn't the destination. The point is the building of it. I'm Dale Merritt. I'm 62 years old. I am retired. I'm alive. And this past Sunday, I took my granddaughter Ellie to the park, and she fell asleep in my arms on a bench by the pond, and I sat there for a long time not moving, not wanting to disturb her. That's my retirement. That's my reward. And nobody is ever going to take that from me again. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories about real people. And drop a comment below. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you make it through? See you in the next one.